Yeah.
On to
All
you.
right. Okay, have a good board meeting. We'll see you later, SC.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning to everybody else. My suggestion is that I think just to conserve the bandwidth, let me maybe just have the video for myself. Then Jerome and Lena, you can turn off, just so that it's easier for our overseas participants. All right. Okay, so let me just do a quick introduction to today's course, right? So I talked to SC actually almost a year now, since they set up Digital Missions 360. And at that point in time, we were introduced through this group called Indigitus, which is a missional technology platform in the sense of getting all the people in the startup scene or those who are in digital work, right, come together and hack solutions for missions. And from there, I met SC, and because I met SC, we started talking about what it means to use the gifts that God has given to us, especially for me as an entrepreneur, to the mission realm. So, I'm going to have to mute you, sorry. Okay, so for me, I've been on this church journey in a slightly different way. I grew up as a Christian, of course, with my parents as Christian, my mom as a Christian. Grew up as a Christian since 8 years old, but really got to know Jesus at 14. Really served the Lord, wanted to be a pastor at 18. God told me, no, you're not going to be a pastor. And I was like, what? And I cried. I said, God, I really want to serve you. And he said, no, there are ways, right? And little did I know that one of the ways that he set for me was to be an entrepreneur, to reach out to people with the products, with the things that I do, with the knowledge that I have. And I really thank God for that. But also on the church front, 10 years now, I've come out to experience and discover the church on a smaller scale, micro churches. Some may call it organic, some may call it house churches, but regardless, it was just a different form of exhibiting the love of Christ in the community. And I've been doing that for the past 10 years. And last year, God was saying, hey, it's time for you to meet up with some of our good friends back in the bigger churches, right? And that's how I met SC again. And I felt that there is a movement of God to really get people to start looking at missions from a different point of view. And I was very encouraged by that. And of course, this crisis hit. And because of the stuff that we were talking about, I found many opportunities to help other groups of people in terms of coming online and also rethinking the way that they serve the Lord. So here's a bit of background, my professional background. I'm a startup guy. So again, all. Okay, sorry everybody, it's just that if I have to mute everybody, otherwise we can hear background sound, okay? So I did my own startup. It's a B2B technology startup. I exited that 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I'm currently the founder for Testing Ground, where I help companies to test out their ideas all across Southeast Asia. Every single one except for Myanmar, Brunei, and Laos, right? Every other one, I can help companies to go there, test out their ideas, and see if their business venture could work there even without leaving Singapore. Okay, so the idea here is how do you get to growth without actually having to send teams all over the place? I've been always passionate about the topic of lean startup, and which is what you are here for. I'm going to share that in a very short while. I'm also an entrepreneur in residence with a university here. But my passion has always been sharing and changing lives, and the way I do it is through entrepreneurship. And I've spoken at many events across Southeast Asia, help companies out, help institutions out. But I do meet startups, many of them, to help them through their startup journey. Currently, I mentor about 15 startups, ranging from those who are just starting off to those who have exited already. My learning pathway was that I started off as an engineer. I did aircraft engineering, and then I went on to do an MBA. And after my MBA, I did my startups. Midway through my startup, I also did my law degree. So I kind of like to do a lot of stuff. I like to learn a lot of things, right? But nothing excites me more than growth. The whole point of doing anything, right, at least in my opinion, is that we don't want it to die. We want it to live. We want it to grow. Then the question is, what's growth, right? So today, I'm going to just talk about this part of growing your business venture. When you start it off, what's a good way to start, right? And one of the best ways to learn how to start is, let's look at how startups start. But of course, being this is a gathering of Christians, right, from time to time, I will begin to share some of my thoughts about how nothing is new under the sun, people. Our God is so intelligent, so wise, that everything, every book that any human being has ever written is simply because it's an expression of his original wisdom already. So there's nothing that the startup world has that they can claim is, oh, we thought of it. Wrong, huh? You can actually find every single thing, whether it's in leadership, management, business, startup, entrepreneurship. All those principles are found in the Bible. God is the beginning of every single one of those wisdom. And I think that's the starting point. So this is not one of those, hey, let's look at what the outside world is doing and let's bring it into the church, right? That's not what I'm trying to do, okay? I'm not presuming that the secular world knows it better than us. On the other hand, they may have uncovered certain frameworks that better explains the wisdom of God within the Bible, right? And so that's what I'm doing here. Now, so here's a disclaimer. Do not have to do everything here. I'm just sharing a framework. I'm just sharing something that we do in terms of entrepreneurship. Use God's wisdom to apply it into your mission work, into your business, into your startup. And I'm very happy to meet up with you if you all want that, to help you in your missional journey, to grow churches all across Southeast Asia, okay? So can't get an amen for that, but I'm going to hear amen in my head from everyone, okay? All right, so let's begin. So why is it that we need to test our next business venture? Okay, why is it that we need to test? So the topic here is testing your next business venture. But why is it that we need to start? Why do we need to test? Number one thing is that when you start something up, the likelihood that it fails, out of every 10 startups, 9 will fail. This is actually a simplification just because I can draw dots, right? So I only drew 10 dots. Likely 95% of startups will fail. Why would they fail? Okay, the number one reason why they fail, no market need. Look at this one, sushi meets coffee, right? Some brilliant person out there thought that I should put in Japanese food together with American coffee, and it just doesn't work, right? 45% fail because there's just no market need. So when you start whatever it is you're doing, of course it's exciting. And there's this part here that Christians have, which is that, okay, God has given me something. And we think that the first thing that God put into our head has an inspiration, right? Is it? And I think many of you here would say that, well, with some wisdom, we realized God was inspiring us, but the way that he executed it is a whole different ballgame altogether. But thank God for his wisdom, right? So same thing, startups, many entrepreneurs, when they start something, they have this vision of the world, they get excited about it. And we call this the reality distortion field. Entrepreneurs have this crazy ability to look at reality and imagine it totally different. They will look at it and other people will say, that's kind of dangerous, very risky. And entrepreneurs, I see nothing but money. I see nothing but opportunities. This is great. We should do it. And everybody is running away and entrepreneurs are like, let's capitalize on this. They have this crazy reality distortion view just because we see the world very differently. And crazy enough, missional people, we are also similar to that. We are pioneers. We look at opportunities, we look at the loss, and we're like, let's go. Well, everybody's like, are you sure? It's so dangerous. I think we should be wise about this. And we're like, let's go, right? But let's think, God, okay? So what God has inspired us to do some stuff. There are ways that we can evaluate what is it that God wants us to do, to figure out what needs to be done in the fastest possible way. The other way, another reason why startups fail is because they run out of cash. Okay, they're just too slow, massively slow, right? They take time to like, okay, let's, on the flip side, instead of being fast and reckless abandonment, right? They are actually so conservative that they're like, okay, let's just do this small thing and let's not show anybody our thing. Let's go into stealth mode. And before they know it, they ran out of cash. They didn't even have a chance to show the public, right? And we went out of business. Another reason is also not just too slow, and they ran out of cash, they got too slow versus the competition. So many times, one of the things that I always share with startups is that nothing is new. And when you are inspired sometimes by something, it's likely that other people are also inspired by it, not just you. Okay, so what about companies, all right, or businesses, right? Why is this important to test out ideas? Interestingly, for in the context of this group here, then the question is, what about churches, right? And we know the church is not a building. I just put a picture here just to illustrate it, right? But what about churches? What about us? What about mission work? What happens to us? Why is this important to test new ideas all the time? Because of the one thing, the word is disruption. On the company front, disruption from startups all over the place. But on the church front, we also have to watch out. There's disruption also from the startups. Then you'll be like, what? Really, it is. Everything out there, Netflix, Lazada, Instagram, Facebook, every one of these platforms, all they are doing is just filling in the gaps for what people are missing in their lives. And all these things are filling up. Food Panda, Grab Food, right? Gluttony, right? You're talking about Lazada, no? Envy, right? And everything else that people has in terms of their desires are fulfilled online. So much so, or even dating, right? So now we have dating apps. So easy for people to connect. So easy for people to form fake communities, fake relationships with one another. That's so much so that they no longer need to kind of search for an answer. Their head is, there's no more answers. It's just being thrown at them. They're absorbing it in. And so the church is also becoming irrelevant. And so there's a disruption that's happening. And because of COVID, what happened is now that people can't go to a church service, it's even more confusing. It's like, so who do we talk to? Where is the place that we can go to? And the church is not so easily seen by the unsaved today. But thank God we have technology, and today, of course, God is doing a lot of stuff on the digital front. But let me tell you a short story, okay? So this is a story of Choluteca Bridge, okay? It's located in Honduras. So when it was constructed in the 1930s, it was like, okay, this bridge, it was not very good, but in 1996, a Japanese construction company came in and reconstructed the whole thing to make it earthquake prone, because Honduras is prone to a lot of earthquakes. So to say, just for safety, make sure that things are still moving and all that, let's make sure that this bridge is nice and strong. So brought in Japanese technology, they rebuilt it, and they were so proud of that technology because it can withstand all the hurricanes up to whatever category, right? But unfortunately, in 1998, 2 years after it was built, or rather 6 months after it was commissioned. So 1996, it started building. I think 6 months after it was commissioned in 1998, Hurricane Mitch hit Honduras. A Category 5 hurricane hit Honduras, right? And everything around was just completely decimated, okay? But the bridge stood its ground. Wow, good job, bridge, right? The Japanese technology worked, or did it? You see, what the hurricane did was not destroy, it literally destroyed everything, but it also moved the river from its original course. It was an architectural, amazing thing that was done. The bridge stood, but everything around it is gone. It doesn't matter how awesome the business model was, how good they think it is. When disruption happens, it happens until you become irrelevant. And when the river moves somewhere else, because of environment, because of other factors, regulatory, political, even if you have a very strong internal structure, it doesn't matter because the external circumstances have changed so much, you are now irrelevant. And it's amazing how quickly things can change. And of course, then they took time to rebuild. And this time around, what happened is that the bridge, they built a connector to the bridge, but the bridge now becomes a connector over the new bridge, right? The old business model is no longer it just becomes something there, right? But they have to build a new bridge. But this is a story of disruption that while we are thinking, oh, we are rethinking the old frameworks, like, okay, let's look after this, let's look at our own mission work this way. But things are happening around such that before you know it, if you are not conscious of it or not listening to the Lord's prompting, you could be, oh wait, hang on, where's everybody else? We were hoping this will happen, but things have moved. The river has changed. So you have to look out for disruption. And the main thing is this, is that human progress through time looks like it's a lot, but it's going through exponential growth. And I think a lot of people know about 4.0 changes in the industry, and that's exactly what is happening. And crazily enough, last time when I had this picture, it was just the robot, right? The AI coming in to disrupt. But now, in this case here, The virus has come in to disrupt something that even human beings, with all of our intelligence and capabilities, we can't stop for now. And it's amazing how so many things that we used to take for granted in a space of like what, 4 or 5 months completely changed. Human being behaviors have changed. The way that they think has changed. Okay, and so the best way I've always told startups and students and other entrepreneurs, you want to predict the future? Yeah, simple. Let's invent it. Let's change it. Right? We are, as Christians, we are pioneers. We go ye therefore, right? We are the ones given the Great Commission. No one has been given this Great Commission. We are the ones. Jesus said, go, go, go. So we go, we create the future, we create it, and the best way is to invent it. Every time somebody takes a step out and do something for a community, you are inventing a new future for the community. Every time you do something in your workplace, you're inventing a new future for your workplace. The crazy thing is here, what you're all trying to learn how to be so-called startups from me, I'm telling you all that if you are in a mission field right now, you're as much as an entrepreneur as I am, right? And so if you have questions, please put it out in the chat, unmute yourself, ask me, no problem. But I do have a lot of slides to get through, so I want to share with you the content, and I have only 1 hour to go. But I am excited. Most of the time, I don't get to share this stuff with Christians. Side note, interesting thing, right? In the past 1.5 years, I've been noticing a lot more Christians are coming into the entrepreneurship realm. Half of the startups that I meet, they are Christians, right? And I want to just share a little bit about that, just 30 seconds on it. One of the greatest guilt that they have as entrepreneurs is that, God, I'm no longer in the ministry. I don't have time to serve you the way I did when I was a younger person, etc. There's a lot of guilt. And one of the things that I then do is say, look, if you look at your startup and you realize that you're starting a micro church there too, and that you are leading that effort and you're bringing people and you're scaling it, and the impact that you have is phenomenal, then you will change the point of view that you have, right? Not all things need to be so-called under a name, right, or a title. But you are doing God's work too, and I think that helped them a lot. So if you hear of people like that, please do encourage them, all right? So here's the thing. Today, I'm coming to you with this concept called the Lean Startup. It's brought in by Eric Ries, and his point was that how do you test out ideas? How do you bring new innovation into the world and de-risk all the points that we talked about just now, all the risk factors? First thing here, the word lean. When we say lean startup, is not cheap startup. Neither are we talking about small startup. Lean, in the word has used in lean engineering, simply means no waste. We're trying to reduce the waste in the search for what works. And there's a lot of waste. For example, one big waste, assuming the customer has the problem because I have the problem. Oh, I love sushi and coffee. Therefore, I believe everybody out there has it, has this same desire as I have. That's a big waste. This assumption coming from you, you're the owner, you're not the customer. So you need to test the customers. Another one here is that, Bryan, I know what features to build. I'm a good engineer, or I'm a whatever it is, right? So I know. The thing is, again, it's a big waste, because if you are wrong, you have spent all your time building something that nobody wants. The question is, what would the customers or what would the beneficiaries want? And another big waste, presuming no trials and no error. And I tell you, this is a big one, right? Regardless, from small startups all the way to big organizations, I've always found that people can't seem to handle this uncertainty, this lack of control, right? So-called lack of control, like, oh, if we don't do it to the best perfect way, it's not going to be good. We need to be excellent in what we're doing. Well, we can, but you're always presuming no trial, no error, that we can't learn from mistakes. And so it's a big waste then, therefore, because when errors happen, you have a fixed mindset and you don't want to learn from your mistakes, right? On the other hand, if you have a growth mindset, then you will be thinking differently. You'll be accepting the mistakes and say, good, love the mistake. Let's grow. Let's improve on it. Okay, so I covered the word lean. Remember, lean is no waste. So then the word startup, all right? Startup, what does startup mean, okay? So what is a startup, right? From Investopedia, it's a company that's in the first stages of its operations. Companies often bankrolled by entrepreneur founders as they attempt to capitalize. And this whole thing is not a right definition, right? Because it presumes some stuff. It says a startup is a company, and a startup developing a product, and you can see the word appearing, the phrase appearing, right? Which they believe the word believe, there is a demand. So all those things just doesn't jive with the concept of a startup anymore. Many years ago, when I started my first startup, the answer for this, this was literally the definition I had. Okay, I finished my MBA. I know what it's like to run a business, know the theory behind it. I thought I could apply it to a startup. My first startup bombed like crazy, and I kid you not. One of the first things I did when we did my business plan with my co-founder was that we laid our hands and we said, God, we commit this business plan to you, and you are the CEO. And you know, one of the things that was when I said that, like, Jesus, you are the CEO, was then he also said, look, what I prayed was, Jesus, you are the CEO, and all glory goes to you. Do you know what I heard next? He said, all failures also belong to me. And that something blew my mind at that moment. He said, yeah, because if all glory goes to Jesus, then there can be no condemnation for those who are in Christ, which includes the failures that I will experience. And that was a big revelation for me. Why? Because my first startup failed. And I could easily have cried, gone into depression, lost a lot of money on it, right? But I didn't. Instead, I came back out of it and I said, hey, what's next? And by God's grace, I was led to read this book, Lean Startup, and that got me on this journey. And so after that, then I began to ask, so what is a startup, right? And the startup is this. It's a temporary organization built to search for the answers to what make a repeatable, scalable business model before running out of resources. So some very key words here, people. First is temporary. If you regard everything in your hands temporary, not permanent, it's very easy for you to give it up to the Lord. If everything you hold is permanent, and then what will happen is there will be a clash of your own desires. But God, all these years, we've been doing it this way. Versus, look, how many years? 100 years? Even if it's 100 years, in a context of eternity, it's literally temporary, right? Nothing that we have in our human life compared to God's eternity can be considered as permanent. And so when you look at this, you realize that whatever we do is temporary and that we are searching for the answers. We're going from glory to find out what is repeatable, what is scalable. Well, of course, the last one here, before running out of resources for startups, that's very true. But for us as Christians, of course, there's real resources like money, but I know all of you can attest to how God can come through at the last minute to provide whatever we need. So the last phrase, before running out of resources, not so relevant for us Christians because we have a providing God, right? A generous God, a Jehovah Jireh. Okay, so I love this because I can never say this to other people, right? And I love sharing this, and I want to just contextualize this in the context of our faith, right? Because for me, yes, my journey has been temporary, and I have run out of resources before, but my God has never run out of resources in the sense that I always have something else to work on next, something else to do, something else to work on. But on the other hand, of course, people may have donated money to you. You may have people who have said, hey, I'm volunteering. So what you want to do is to use people's time and money in the best way possible. So the Lean Startup is therefore a scientific approach to help you create these new ideas, these new ventures, and manage it very well for you, right? To get whatever you desire or what the customers desires into their hands faster. Okay, so it's the application of a scientific method, which is a scientific method means you make a hypothesis, or rather you make an observation of the world. You make a hypothesis, you come out with an experiment, you come out with data, you learn from it, you come out with another experiment. It follows a methodology that allows you to systematically break down your risk. Okay, and that means in order to do that, you must move from a framework where there's elaborate planning, a lot of intuition on the part of the founder, and a lot of design up front, to smaller groups of people who can experiment faster, get feedback from the customers or the beneficiaries on the ground. And there's very iterative design to say, let's start small. What's the next thing that we can do? What can we learn? What can we do next? What can we do? Let's do something tomorrow rather than wait until next month before we do something. Let's do something tomorrow just to learn. And very quickly, we can get to learning about what's next. So historically, if you're going to do stuff inside a company or anything that you're doing, you'll go in a sequential level, right? We call this a waterfall. From a business plan, we'll design, we'll get an engineer on it, we'll go to market to the customer. This is what we call a waterfall method. Today, we're very agile. This is what we call build, measure, and learn loop. It's a very iterative process. It's a loop. And what it does is that it builds learning, rather ideas on top of learning. So here's a more technical definition of lean startup. It says that we do customer development, which means trying to uncover what is an unknown problem and solution, together with lean product development, which means how do you create this product which we do not know of in the fastest way possible, where, now this may blow your mind, it's not metrics in terms of number of people or money, but instead the measure of progress was, what have we learned here? What did we learn more? Every week, did we learn more than last week? And if you stop learning, ask yourself, if you have stopped learning in your organization, then are you truly progressing? If you are not learning, then there's no progress anymore. It means you have plateaued. So think about this. What is your real measure of progress here? Again, something more technical. If you don't know it, it's okay. But I just want, for those who know this product concepts like jobs to be done, design thinking, agile principles, how does that work in with lean startup? Okay, so here's how it works, all right? If you do jobs to be done is a methodology to say, where are the big problems? What are the big problems? Okay, we want to uncover the big problems. Lean startup comes in and says, well, would customers pay to solve this problem? Could your beneficiaries, would they pay, or would they be part of the solution to solve this problem? Do they want to get help in the first place? Now, if you find that, oh, customers do want to pay, beneficiaries do want to get help, then the question is, okay, you use design thinking and ask, what would be a desired solution then? What can we use here? And then from there, you come up with a solution. Lean startup come in again, well, would customers pay for this solution? In the case of a mission work, would your beneficiaries use this solution, right? How do you get them to pay or use it, okay? And once you realize, oh, good, there's traction, people do want it, the solution, then you develop your product. Then you use agile principles to quickly create features by features rather than waiting, right? Waiting for everything to be done. You create one step at a time. So that, and then lean startup will come in, okay, which feature next, whether people who use it, and can we get more customers? And interestingly, when you look at lean startup, it's always on the money side of things. It's the business side of things, like where is the money, or in the case of a beneficiary, where is the impact? Where is the impact? Okay, so you're measuring impact. On the other side, on the left-hand side, is all about can we solve this problem? What does it look like in terms of a solution? How do we execute on it? So it's very in terms of product. That's where it's focused on. Lean startup is more on the business model. Can this work in terms of the impact, or whether in terms of money? All right, so again, I remind, if you have any questions, please put it into the chat bar. I am looking at it, it's all in front of me. So if you have, just go ahead and interrupt me if you need to, okay? All right, so now the next question, then you want to, I think it's important for people to think about when they do startups or new business ventures or missional ventures, is we don't want to just work on problems, we want to work on big problems, okay? Now, I know the Lord says, do not despise the day of small beginnings. But trust me, when God asks you to start on a small beginning, He's definitely getting you to embark on solving something big in the world, right? It doesn't matter how long, you may not be the one, but somebody else will. You're setting you're sowing the seed, but the harvest is bountiful, okay? The harvest is bountiful, amen? Right? So what is a big customer problem out there for us to solve? And so I want to tell you first, what are problems? What are problems? The simplest way to define problems is a failure to progress. What is stopping people from progressing in life or in anything else that they want? When you look at any problem, it's basically people saying, actually, I want something, I need something done, or I want to achieve something. There's something that they need, or they want, or desire, and there's an obstacle in that path of that progress. So when you look at problems, actually, it's not problems, but it's actually, the underlying a problem is a desire for progress. So look out. If you are trying to solve problems, don't solve minor frustrations. Frustrations are not problems, they're just irritating, like can't find the remote. It's not, the progress is so small, like I want to turn on the TV, right? So coming out with device or solutions like this, yeah, sure, put the TV remote on your head. Good job, well done. As you can tell, these are not going to get you any traction in terms of solving the problem. So these things I'm showing you are in the Japanese Hall of Fame for products that are useless. So they literally have a museum online of useless products, okay? And credit the Japanese for trying out everything, right? So that's funny. But then there are other stuff, right? Minor inconveniences are not big problems. So the first one, frustration. Minor frustration, not big problem. Minor inconveniences, lifting luggage into the car, right? Lifting things into the car boot, like this one, right? Coming out of a device. Now, this might work if the person is handicapped or any other one of those circumstances, right? But for people, when you look at inconveniences, you have to ask yourself, is it a big problem that people will pay a lot of money for or spend a lot of time with, right? The other thing you need to look out for are symptoms. Symptoms are not big problems. Symptoms are just, unless they have big consequences, okay? So we know that symptoms are not problem, but neither just because there are symptoms or big symptoms doesn't mean there's a problem underlying. What you need to look at is whether the symptoms have big negative consequences. If the symptoms have big negative consequences, those consequences are the big problems that you want to solve, right? So ultimately, when you look at all these things, what we want is that big problems ultimately seems to revolve around the concept of a painful situation. So as I always teach startups, right? When you look at the problem, say, hey, this is an obstacle to progress, but the problem becomes really big when the situation becomes painful. So just because I say all of the above just now, all minor, let me show you how they become major, right? You can't find the remote control, okay? For example, like my son watching TV, right? Can't find the remote control to turn it off when dad comes home and he knows he shouldn't be watching TV. Suddenly, that minor frustration become major frustration. The situation just made it very inconvenient, very painful. When you're lifting things into a car boot, like I said, if you're pregnant or you're handicapped or for that moment you fractured your arm, you realize that minor inconvenience, because of the situation you are in, suddenly that minor inconvenience become big problems, okay? So look for painful situations, because when you uncover painful situations, you can then discover big problems to solve. So a big problem, most of the time, should have a big market. Otherwise, it's very difficult for you to grow. Or a big problem also should have people willing to sacrifice to get it solved. Now, at times, a big problem can have a small market, right? But it's a big opportunity, right? If it's a big cost to them. So just because there's a small group of people doesn't mean automatically it's a small problem. No, it could be, it's a big problem with a small market, but they are willing to pay a lot. Like for example, oil and gas. It's a smaller group, right? But on the other hand, it may be a small market that doesn't really affect us on the day-to-day, except for, I mean, of course it affects us, right? Electricity and all that, but I mean, if we are not exactly in the industry. But the thing is that all those rigs, each one of them costs hundreds of millions of dollars to make. So it's a big cost, right? So that big market actually is a big market opportunity. So I always share with startups, and I'm sharing with you now, look, if you want to have a big worthy problem, find one with big negative personal consequence that costs a lot to fix, which occurs very often and hopefully occurs in the same way, okay? All right, going to move right along, halfway there. Now, here comes the thing, okay? So now I talked a lot about how to test what are big problems. I talk about startups, I talk about lean startup. Okay, so let's get to the meat of this whole thing. How do you actually test? Can you all think of someone who tested, you did something to test out there in the Bible, right? So, and I'm not talking about testing God, so we're not talking about Gideon type of test, okay? We're talking about test, okay? Right? Like, what did somebody do something to test, or rather to experiment? Okay, so you think about that. And then I ask you, so if you remember the story of Noah, right? Noah. What did Noah do, right? So Noah sent out two birds. One was a raven and the other is a dove. Okay, and the whole point of doing that was that he needed to understand was that, okay, the giant boat that we are on, is landed on the top of a hill or a mountain, right? Is it time to set everybody free, right? All the animals are waiting, two by two to get out, So the flood has subsided, so is it time to let people go, animals go, right? So Noah sent out two birds. First bird he sent out was a raven. Raven didn't come back to Noah. Okay, and then Noah then sent out a dove. What happened here was that what happened here, right? Sorry, I gotta mute everyone. Okay, what happened here is that by sending out the raven, what Noah was asking was that, is there meat or food for the animal, the carnivores on board? So you may ask, hey Brian, how do you come to the interpretation? Actually, it's not stated in the Bible. No one really know why Noah did what he did, but this was written by from the Torah. Looking at it, I was just reading up about how some of these explanations were given. People were asking, because the raven is a omnivorous animal, and most of the time it feeds on carcasses or leftovers, right? In this case here, they were presuming that if the raven, they were presuming that Noah was thinking that if he sent the raven out, if he sends the raven out and the raven doesn't come back, it means that there's meat on the ground for the animals, the carnivorous animals to eat. And so that was exactly what happened. The raven went out, didn't come back to Noah. So Noah then sent out the dove. Now the dove, on the other hand, is a nesting animal, right? It nests in the trees. So he wanted to know whether for the rest of the herbivores and everything else, are the trees back in action, right? And so as we all know, the famous story goes like the dove came back with an olive branch in its beak. And that's how Noah then knows that, okay, both sets of animals now work. We have those that can survive on meat. Yep, the raven didn't come back. And for the dove, representing the herbivores and all that who need grass, right, or grassy things or seeds, the dove represented that, okay, it's time and safe for everyone for the herbivores to go out too. And so, and that was, so those are the picture, right? So the dove came back to Noah, right, and ultimately he let everybody out, okay, and 2 by 2, the opposite way. And so what happened here is that, as you can see, there are examples of testing going out there, going on in the Bible. And this is interesting because it follows through that this, one of the lean startup concepts that I've shown you before just now was a concept of build, measure, and learn. What is something that you can do to build something, to measure, to get data so you can learn from it and get more ideas? And you can see that that was what Noah did. He built an experiment by sending out 2 birds. He measured their responses. He got back data. Raven didn't come back. The dove came back with something. He learned from it and he came out with more ideas, right? And so to us in Lean Startup, we consider that one round to be an experiment. Now, the key thing here is that everything makes sense. Building, you probably know how to do it. Measuring, you probably know how to do it. Learning is not so easy. Learning is really not easy. It is actually the reason why most of the time this build, measure, and learn loop is broken, because many times founders find it very difficult to learn from the customers. And I tell you the main obstacle, pride. We always think we know it better than them. We are here to help you. We are the entrepreneur. I'm the one who's gone through education and I know a lot more than you. I'm the one who's a design expert. I know more than you. And so when the data comes back, we dismiss it away rather than, wait, hang on, let's listen. Why did the customer say that? Oh, they took the action? Wow, that's interesting. Can I find out more about that? But instead, many times I find entrepreneurs angry with the customers' responses. Like, what kind of customers are these? It's terrible, blah, 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 blah. Right? And they get angry at the customers and says, are you not listening? They are telling you it's not a problem. What's the bigger problem then? And so for us Christians, if you realize this is the reason, one big reason why God tells us to humble ourselves before God. Because God is also using our beneficiaries. God is using our customers to teach us. And that requires a humble attitude. Right? Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord and He will lift you up in due course. The word lift, to prosper you. How can you prosper if you have pride? Because God will oppose the proud. There's no way you can do this. So to me, you want to do a startup? You want to start a new venture? Step number 1, die to self. Die to self. Serious. Just die to self, right? Because when you die to self, you can come before the Lord and you can learn. Okay? Now, it's hard for a lot of non-Christians to hear this because they don't understand that naturally. But for Christians, this is easier because we know what it's like to learn from Daddy, Father, right? From Abba God, right? Because we know He loves us. Whatever little discipline we get for that moment is for our good. And that discipline may come in the form of angry customers, unhappy customers, people who are telling you this problem, I couldn't pay to solve that. And you're like, okay, I humble myself. Tell me more about that, right? Okay, so now that you understand the build, measure, and learn, now I'm going to bring through the next part of it. Okay, but how to test quickly. Okay, so the first concept was, all right, so how to test? I said that, all right, we do an experiment, build, measure, and learn. But the next question you may ask me is, how do you test quickly? So here comes the next lean startup concept, okay? It is called the minimum viable product. I'm going to show Eric Wee's face again. Again, he's the guy who came out with the concept of lean startup. And he says, the minimum viable product is that version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of learning, validated learning about the customers with the least effort. Once you understand this, then it will change the way that you understand a product or even a program. Whatever that you're doing, if you have an idea or you have an inspiration, the question is, what's the fastest, the smallest version of that program or the smallest version of product that you can do tomorrow, next week, or next few days, right? To collect the most amount of learning from the customers with the least effort. Okay? So once you understand this, then you will say that, okay, good, we don't have to necessarily get everything in place. We just need to do a small version of what we want to do, and let's see how people respond to that. So minimum viable product, let's not do it like this. So when we say a small version of the product, we're not saying, like, for example, if you want to do a boat, you go and do a paper boat. Okay? That's not it. The word is minimum. So you all now understand that minimum means least effort but most learning. But in order for you to get learning, it must also be viable for the customer. So we're not talking about paper boats if you're trying to do a boat. It doesn't make sense. Okay, we're not talking about paper boats here. Instead, and even if you look at the rest, even if you make a boat, there's no oars, right? So the guy can't get anywhere. And even if you do a speedboat, you give him the oars and then there's a patch, it's leaking. Again, it's not viable. It may be small, but it's not viable. Instead, you do it like this. You do a version in which you say, let's start off with a wooden boat. It's the smallest thing that I can do to learn about whether people want to travel from one place to another. The smallest thing I can do, and yet it's viable because it's a wooden boat, right? After that, I do a speedboat. After that, I do a yacht, right? Or a more luxurious version. But basically, you're building concepts upon concepts upon concepts rather than starting off like, we have this big idea and let's start off this way. Now, instinctively, I think a lot of Christians, we also know this. The Lord, in His infinite wisdom, usually start us off small. We already know this. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. So, like I said, nothing new. God already knows it. He's done it before. And He has helped us, many of us, do this even without learning the concept of lean startup, right? But today, I'm just putting some language onto these concepts, okay? Now, moving along, interestingly, the build, measure, and learn cycle do appear in big companies or big organizations, except that their build, measure, and learn is across one whole year. They come out with a work plan in January that they operate throughout the year, and then by December, they come out with let's get together and let's learn. Right? So the build, measure, and learn is across 1 year. Now imagine, how many times can you learn in a year? Once. That's all you can do. Now a lean startup, on the other hand, or a lean ministry could then do their build, measure, and learn many times using smaller versions of the product to learn from the customer. Now, which means that in this case here, you can have 12 times, right, to learn about the customers and change. But usually in startups, I do weekly experiments or bi-weekly experiments, which means I have the chance, I possibly can have up to 56 times of learning in a year. Now imagine that. If I learn 56 times versus a competitor who's only learning once a year, who's going to get closer to the customer or the beneficiaries, right? And this is exactly what it means. If I give you a one bow and one arrow, and I say, you must get this right, and you have to hit the bullseye, I think a lot of us will spend so much time thinking that when we fight, by the time we let go, either time is up, competition is over, right? Or we will completely miss because we have no muscle memory. We didn't learn how to actually shoot a bow and arrow. But if I give you 100 bow and arrows, you're going to just try, shoot, right? before long, you get closer and closer to the bullseye, okay? And so that's what the minimum viable product does for you, is that it gives you many more opportunities to learn and to try. Okay, the next concept here is the get out of the building. Interestingly, this one doesn't work so well in the COVID crisis right now, right? Getting out of the building to talk to customers. But get the spirit behind it. It basically means that there are no facts inside your building, inside your team, inside your discussion group. Get outside, talk to customers, whether that's virtually over Zoom or whether you're doing it over chat, right? It doesn't matter. The point is, if you are within your team and you're all ideating and you're all going like, this is a good idea, no, this is a good idea, and you're arguing among yourselves, who's right? Technically, none of you, because you're not the customer. Only the customer knows what they really want. And so in my team, how I run it is that every time we get into an argument, anything more than 10 minutes of blah, 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 arguing, that we know there's no end to this, it's just two solid positions, I will then stop the discussion and say, great, how do we experiment on this? How do we experiment on your point of view? And how do we experiment on your point of view? And then immediately they go out, they talk to the customers, and most of the time they will come back and you know the answer they give me? Bryan, we're both wrong. We're both wrong. We both thought, I thought it was this, he thought it was that, but we're wrong. Actually, the customer was completely thinking about this instead. And it's amazing how fast it breaks up that not dilemma, right? But that moment where people are just loggerheads with each other and refusing to budge. Okay? All right. Now, for friends over in outside of Singapore, welcome to this webinar. Suchan is recording this. I understand that I do speak very fast. So if you can't get what I'm saying, please get the recording and then reduce it to 0.8 or 0.5 speed so that you can catch up with it, okay? But I do have a lot of content, so I do apologize, all right, if I'm speaking a bit too fast. But usually this is my energy anyway, okay? Again, like I asked, if you have any questions related, please put it in the group chat and I will answer it later or along the way. Okay, so what kind of risks are we testing? So we say, Bryan, you say test quickly, test fast, blah, blah, blah. All right, I get it. But what are we testing for, huh? What are we really testing? Okay, in general, 4 things. First thing, you want to test desirability. Do the customers want this? Do the market, do they want this? Does the market want this idea at all? How do you know that? How do they show it to you that they want this? Another one is that feasibility. This one's a little bit easier. Most of you will be kind of used to that, which is, all right, can we deliver this? So we spend a lot of time thinking about the product, thinking about our program, thinking about our messaging, right? So we spend a lot of time. So this one, we're quite good at it, right? Most people are. The next one, however, not so good. Viability. Can we make money out of this? Can we keep ourselves sustaining? If we are a social venture or are we charity? Is this thing something that when we do it, we have some way to generate income to keep ourselves going? The last one is adaptability. So there is a new risk out there, as you can see the past few months, okay? Is that changing environment. When the environment changes, is your business model, is your impact model adaptable? Can it change? Or when you look at it, you say, actually we are tied to this particular technology or this particular way of doing it. If everything changes, there's no way we can move because we're so tied to this so-called network or whatever it is, or technology or methodology, that everything changes, we can't do it anymore. So good example, lean startup, right? I just talked about it, remember? One of the methodology is get out of the building, okay? If lean startup says, no, all people who do startups must, and I insist that they have to talk to customers face to face, or else it's not considered a lean startup. If you're so dogmatic about it, we are doomed. There's no way I can do lean startup in the past few months. But I've been helping startups and companies test still. How? Online. I've just been doing it online. Because the principle behind this is not about face to face. The principle about it is that don't stay in your head. The customers are more important, right? And so you have to ask yourself, your methodology, is it too fixed such that you are so dogmatic about it there is no way you can adapt to a changing environment? And if so, this could be the time, or else you will become a bridge in the middle of nowhere, okay? So I repeat again, so desirability, feasibility, viability, adaptability. If you want to know more about this, it's under the concept of the business model canvas. There are also people who come up with the impact model canvas. Okay, so you can look about this. Eric Ries recently wrote a book called Lean Impact, if I'm not wrong. So you can also look for his book, okay? Lean Impact talks about applying the concepts here, but towards social enterprises. All right, so, okay, we know we have a test for risk. What can we use to test with customers so that it's quickly and it's fast? All right, I'm going to teach you 3 types of minimum viable products today, and hopefully you can use it in your mission work, in your church work, or of course, for many of you could be your businesses or your startups. Okay, so the 3 types of minimum viable products I'm going to teach you will be the solution pitch minimum viable product, concierge, and the Wizard of Oz MVP. Okay, I'm going to short form it to MVP. First one, solution pitch MVP, right? So here, the solution pitch MVP is basically you pitching a solution to the customers to see whether they can give you some kind of currency. And I'll explain currency in a short while. But basically, you're interacting with the customer, you're sparking their imagination to imagine your solution, and then to then gauge whether they are willing to pay for this solution. Okay? So let me give you an example. You can put photos on your phone. Okay, so this is an example of some a startup I tested in Thailand, right? Where we went to backpackers and we said that, look, nothing more than photos on our phone. Really, literally, we just took photos on the spot and we went around to backpackers and we showed them, you know what it's like when we go to new places and you're not sure what to do. And you see, for example, local transportation, and you're asking, as a guy, you know, if I want to sit on the bike, do I sit like this too? Because I see the lady sitting like this. And so when you are traveling as a traveler, sometimes you get yourself into situations you're not sure what to and how to behave like a local. And that's what we want to do. The startup is here to help you not know where to go like a travel guide, but how to behave. What are the dangerous things? What are the things that you need to look out for? The wisdom of overcoming uncertain things as a tourist, right? So you can put photos on the phone, and by doing it this way, the backpackers saw what we were doing. They sparked their imagination, and they said, what are you doing then? Also, oh, we are doing a fear guide, where our guide will then tell you how our PDF file that we are writing out will then show you how to overcome some of these common challenges that you will face as a backpacker, and to avoid being scammed or having your money taken away from you. Wow, and immediately 20 out of 20 of these backpackers gave us money that day and said, Bryan, do this, and we want to be your first customers. Okay, so I tell you this story simply because many times we think that we need a finished product in order to pitch to customers. But I want you to realize that there are things like Kickstarter right now, right? They're saying that, look, here's a product, we want to solve it, give us money, show us that you want this, then we'll bring it to life. This is not an unknown principle. People sign up for classes, people put in deposits for things. It's just that for us, many times we don't ask our customers or beneficiaries to show that they are willing, they want this thing solved. Okay, I know we have good intentions, especially for missional people. We have good intentions, but that doesn't mean that the market is ready. They may not want it to be solved right now. There may be another problem for you to solve. And so, aside from putting things on your phone, you can also create landing pages. Like, this is what I had. I had a landing page. I had 20,000 people come to it. And in the end, I had like 1,000 people sign up for this thing even before I have a product. All I had was one landing page. Right, and because of that and the way that I pitched, I got even on radio, I got on newspapers, blogs and everything, technology blogs, and I have no product, no technology behind it other than the concept, right? And what's interesting is that you can then use this to gauge interest. Of course, you can show mock-ups and everything, but my suggestion usually is don't do that. More important is to describe your solution. The aim of doing all this, especially like the first one that I showed, like sparking the imagination of the customer, is that you're saying to them, I'm promising you a solution, but in turn, I need to know that you're serious about this as a customer. Basically, it's a form of deposit. To say, if you give me a deposit, I will let you be the first customer. So many times when I talk about this, Christian entrepreneurs are uncomfortable. They say, wow, that's cheating. What if it doesn't work out? Then return the money, right? We are honest, right? If the customers are not comfortable with it, they won't give you money. But trust me, I've done this all across Southeast Asia. Your cookie monster, your early adopters are very happy because when they realize somebody is solving the problem, they're very excited. They will put money into your hands to say, please solve this. Think about that. It's really their way of telling you, this is a big problem. If you can solve it, I don't mind you keep this money. It's my token of appreciation, right? So there is an exchange because you're giving a future promise for money today, right? So that's not an unknown business model, okay? So let me give you an illustration of what this means. So in China, there was a group out there who wanted to do an IoT watch, IoT device in the form of a watch where it can measure the oximeter, the oxygen level, and the heartbeat and the blood pressure, and then send it to a doctor who can then make assessment of whether you need help or not, okay, as a patient. And what happened was this is not the actual picture, it's something representative, but the team went out, talked to the doctors, and then they asked the doctor, could this new product solve a problem for you and your patients? Could it help you save more lives and make your job as a doctor easier, right? So they asked this question, will it solve the problem? Do you like it? Do you think it's useful? And what happened was the doctors came back and like, oh yeah, it was very useful, blah, blah, blah. They all fell in love with it, right? So, but the question was, how can you be sure the potential customers will actually become actual customers? So when the lean startup people came on board and started talking to the team and says, how did you actually test that the doctors are on board? And after hearing that, the doctors did nothing more than just say, yeah, I love it, right? They advised the team to try something out. So they say, do a mock-up, put it on slides exactly the same way, like somewhat like this. Put it just on slides. Go back to the doctors, pitch to them, show it to them, and then ask the doctors to write a letter of recommendation to the hospital chief administrator. Okay, this one here, this is just an illustration, so it's not the real letter. But basically, the letter of recommendation says this, the doctor themselves will recommend that the hospital buy the new product when it becomes available, and they are to sign off in their own name. So by putting in this currency, can you see the word currency, right? It is not money, but in this case here is work or sacrifice. The doctors have to sacrifice their reputation, right, to back up this startup. Suddenly, the people that they went to all said no. Look, it's not even it's not a purchase order. It's not an invoice. It's not a commitment to buy. All the team was asking for, can you since you say you like it, since you say it's useful, can you just recommend this to the boss, the chief administrator, to consider talking to us, looking at what we are doing? The answer was no, even though all of them overwhelmingly, the same people overwhelmingly gave positive praise. So be very careful when you're doing a startup, because when you go and talk to people and you ask these questions, would you ever, do you like this? These kind of things, nobody like to say your idea is stupid, okay? Nobody will ever say your baby is ugly, all right? It's extremely impolite. So they're going to give you reasons like, yeah, good, oh, it's good. I think it's interesting what you have there. They will couch it in nice sounding words, but it means nothing to you as a startup. But instead, if you're led down this path and you didn't know it, you're in trouble because you waste time. So instead, the team, what they did was then they built, measure, and learn around all the no's. They started running more and more experiments, and slowly, through iteration, began to turn one doctor and another doctor into letter of yeses. Then these doctors began to write letter of recommendation because they finally got comfortable with what was going to, what they were doing. Okay? So what happened here is that you have to track actual customer behavior, not opinion, right? And so this is the reason why lean startup is different from traditional market research. So every time I go to customers they will always say, how are you different from a focus group or a survey company? I say Testing Ground, which is the company that I run now. We use lean startup to go out to the market to see whether people would buy. We're not asking for opinion. If they give us good opinions, we back it up. We test them out to see whether they would back it up with sacrifice. So it's not like a focus group or an opinion thing where everyone is so easy to say, this is a good idea. No, this is not a good idea. I will buy. I think it's good. No. You think it's good? Yeah, please. Thank you. Open up your wallet. Give me your credit card. Give me a recommendation. Pass over a name card. Give me a meeting with your boss. Show me that you care, right? So, and that's where the concept of currency comes in. There's an exchange of something of importance, right, with our future promise. They want to say, okay, if you do this, I'll do this for you now. Okay. So usually what that means is to make it easier is to sell, then design, and then build. Okay, so Samuel is asking, how do you set up the measurements to track behavior? With the iterations, the need to focus on important metric and useful metric will be very important. So I did not cover the setup of an experiment, but you definitely will need to set up success criterion. So which means that, for example, if you say that we're going to go to 20 doctors, right? Out of that 20 doctors, how many must show you a signal before you feel comfortable to move on? That's a judgment. But usually the judgment will be, say, I use it in the way I say that, look, if you have to put your own money into it, how many doctors must say yes in order for this to work? Another way for you to do it would then to measure it versus how many customers do you need to convert so that your business model makes sense. If only 2 out of every 10 doctors are going to say yes, then something is going wrong, because then what about the other 8 in 10? How are you going to convert them over? So the metrics, there are various metrics for it. I won't cover it today, Samuel. Unfortunately, it's just too much. Happy to talk with you all separate time. But he is right, there will be metrics. So in setting up an experiment, like in the scientific process, you do need a hypothesis. All right. So yeah, I will cover that. If you join the series, next I have another 2 more, one on selling and another one on the mistakes. I will share more about how to set up experiments. Okay. All right, next one. So look at this one, Medibank. Okay, so Medibank is a health insurer in Australia, right? And what they did was they wanted to do this gym better product, right? And what they did was to send employees out to a busy shopping strip in plain clothes with iPads, trying to sell a fictional product under the guise of a fictional company to passerbys and gym owners, purely to gauge customer interest. If somebody wanted to buy on the spot, they were simply reminded that, sorry, this doesn't exist, but thanks for your cooperation. Here's 2 movie tickets. And what happened is that the customers may feel like, they won't feel cheated. They just feel like, oh, cool. And they are very happy about movie tickets. But what happened was that they say, oh, wow, thanks for, they're very happy about the opportunity to share about the problem. I never had anyone come back to me and say, you cheated me. All of them will be like, oh, cool. That's a cool, interesting way of for you to ask me for my thoughts. What happened was you try to simulate. What we are doing here is a simulation. We're not intentionally doing fraud. So when here's another tip. When I send my team out, and I have, for those who are from other countries, come to think about it, I run testing ground and I help people to test ideas. To test ideas, I need people to help me test it in the countries, and I actually pay those people to test ideas for me. So usually I find students and everything. I'm very open. If you run a ministry out there and say, Bryan, can you train my people out to be testers for you and earn money? I'm very happy to explore the opportunity, okay? Just saying, putting it out there, all right? So just let me know at the end of the whole session, there's a feedback form that you are interested to do that also, all right? I didn't exactly put it there, just put it as you want to have a chat with me, okay? So, but what happened here is that my testers will go out, they will test with the customers. The customers will give money. We actually have money. They will take pictures of the money, right? They were like, hey. But once they've taken a picture of the money, my testers will take the money and give it back to the customer and say, thank you so much. Actually, all we needed to do was to show evidence that people wanted this. And people were like, oh, okay, cool. You know what some of them did? What some customers did? They said, keep the money. We really want you to solve this problem. Okay? And that's hilarious, okay? All right, so moving right along, I talked about pitching. So here in this case here, you're sparking imagination by showing them some representation of it. It could be a pitch deck, it could be a flyer, it could be pictures on the phone, it could be a prototype. But then by sparking imagination, you're asking for early commitment. Can you come in? Now, what if you do get commitment and you say, but Bryan, I've got enough people saying commitment, but I don't have, should I do an actual product right now? Don't do it. Instead, consider, can you manually deliver the solution without technology for now? Take, for example, Roger Egan, when he started RedMart, which is an e-commerce grocery delivery solution. Of course, they exited to Lazada. One of the things that they did in the beginning was they borrowed a van from a friend, and then they painted it up. And the founders themselves, they didn't have a fancy logistics system, operational system, delivery system. They just manually did it on their own. And so there was no, at the time, what you see now in terms of delivery services. So RedMart, they themselves went out there to deliver. And so when Roger and his co-founder went out to deliver the stuff, they started looking at all the things that people were ordering from them, the early customers, what they were ordering, and it turned out to be all bulky items. But they were looking like, but who are ordering all these bulky items like tissue paper, kitchen towels, and a lot of beer? They show up at the doorstep, and when they saw it, they realized it was a Japanese housewives. They were looking at it, all diminutive and small in size, and they were very polite, and they said, thank you so much, because without you, it means I have to go to the grocery store, and my husband entertains people all the time at home, so I always need to buy beer, and it's very heavy, etc., etc. And so they begin to know their customer persona, because they manually delivered without waiting for some fancy algorithm. They did it on their own first to begin to learn about it. Okay? So concierge is a very powerful way, which means that instead of building out a platform, so some other examples, if you want to do a platform and you want to match people, well, you be the matchmaker first. You can use WhatsApp, you can use a Facebook page, and you begin to match people manually, like, oh, you need this? Okay, I'll match you with that person. Recently in Singapore, the startup community here did something called Mentors for Hope, in which we connected mentors with startups who needed help, and I was one of those mentors, and the startups will contribute money to charity. But the people who did this thing, they started off with just Google Forms and Google Sheet to match people up on the sheet. And up to now, that's all they're doing. They didn't look for some fancy matching technology. In actual fact, they did try. It didn't work as well as a Google Sheet, to be frank. And so manually delivering the solution is very interesting. But the key word here is concierge. You see, a concierge is a person who helps you, right? But you see the person helping. So when Roger Egan went to deliver, they actually saw the founder appearing. Okay, so there's this element of the human delivered power in full view of customers. This is in very different contrast to the Wizard of Oz method. The Wizard of Oz method instead says that once you get customers, you can manually deliver the solution, but this time around, the customer, they don't see you. Now, why is that so? Okay, if you know the story of Wizard of Oz, right? The Dorothy and gang went to find the Wizard of Oz to try and get Dorothy back. Okay, but they went to see the Wizard of Oz, a big floating green head. Okay, but when the dog actually opened up when they opened up the door, actually what's the name of the dog? I can't remember. But anyway, the Dorothy's dog pulled open the curtain, and there was an old man in the background. Let me see whether I can get this to work. No, look, sorry. Actually, I'm just testing this out. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, but if you pull open the curtain, you see an old man behind the curtain actually pulling on levers and buttons to make the talking head talk. Okay, and what that means is this: the Wizard of Oz MVP delivers a solution that's an illusion of sophisticated back-end functionality. It's illusion. The customers can't see it. It's an illusion because on the back end, human beings are still delivering it. So some ways to make it happen, for example, Zappos, when it started many years ago in the beginning, Tony Hsieh actually sold shoes even without inventory. He went down, he started it from his apartment, he created a website, he went down to the retail stores downstairs from his place along the streets. He went into the shops, he took pictures. Right? He took pictures of the shoes, put it on the website, and put it for sale. And then when every time people make a purchase, he will go downstairs, pay for the shoe, then after that he wrap it out and send it out. Which means he actually lost money because he had to include delivery and all that stuff, right? But what was interesting, he wanted to test out, would people buy shoes if you can't try it out online? And when he discovered that people are willing, and because he also gave you can return the shoes if it doesn't fit policy, he realized it worked really well, and that's how Zappos started. And so he has this illusion that he has inventory, but actually there's no inventory at all. Another one of it is, of course, like Shazam or any other one of those song detection apps where they're saying this is when you should let them listen to the song. It tells you this is the title of the song. Imagine if you're starting this off, you could have a whole back room full of people listening to the songs, right? that people are sending through WhatsApp, for example, okay? And then they're like, oh, I know this song, and then they're just typing it back. And then the person on the other end is like, hey, this is quite cool, huh? It gave me the name of the song, but actually they didn't know it's not an AI that's doing it, it's actually human beings doing it. And that leads on to my favorite Wizard of Oz minimal viable product. It's a WhatsApp bot. I've used this many, many times, where I've asked customers to so-called use WhatsApp to communicate with me, right? To communicate with me and talk with me, okay? And what that does is that it makes them think that they are talking to a chatbot, but actually the person talking to them is me. There's an illusion of functionality because they think it is that it is a real robotic chatbot, right? But actually it's just Bryan in the background. So I still remember one of my workshops, there was a C-level chief executive, right, who was like, are you sure? Are you sure? So I told him, just pretend you're a LinkedIn bot and try this. Okay, so he went on and then immediately he pushed out some contacts and started talking. And then people replied, and they replied to the bot, and they started asking the bot question, and he was amazed because it didn't take him more than 10 minutes to get started, and within 15 minutes, people started responding, and he started learning about their problems, all because he gave them an illusion of functionality without actually having to code. All right, I'm going to end off this session by telling you, so what does the entire process look like then? Okay, what does it look like? Okay, so remember, the process, interestingly, even though we call it a build, measure, and learn, it's literally learn first. And I think this is the part where we, as Christians, we sit at the feet of Jesus. And our first step is not get busy. Literally, it's not get busy. It is listening, learning from the Lord, sitting before Him, learning whatever is necessary. Because the thing is this, is that we have an unfair advantage versus everybody else in the world, don't we? We've got a King of the universe whispering secrets into our hearts, giving us knowledge. We have access to infinite knowledge, infinite wisdom. Why are we not leveraging on that? Why are we not getting access to it? And we don't have a God who is selfish. We have a God who loves us, who's abundant. And because of that, when God gives us an inspiration, our first step should not be build. Our first step should be learn. Humble ourselves at the side of the Lord so that He can give us the ideas, give us the thoughts. So then after that, we execute it by building. But again, not with elaborate execution, big things, but humble, small things that we can do, okay? And then after that, we measure, we learn. And once you do that, you can do all the other stuff. So this is the business model canvas. Again, if you do not know it, it's available online. It's called Business Model Canvas. You will then run experiments on the customers, the value proposition, figuring out the ways to get the customers, the relationship with the customers, how to make money, how to do the stuff in the back end, how to cost, make things cheaper. But those are all the steps that you will have to take. It's not just testing the customer, but you have to test a lot more in the business model or the impact model. Finally, what will happen, right, will be to then ideate, come up with more business models, because as you ideate, you will find that your ideas will doesn't work, right? So does it mean it doesn't work that we get disappointed with God? No. I tell you, if anything, the failures are a stepping point for you to learn about what would work. The failure is part of the process. Without the failure, it's very hard to move on. There's no startup in the world that doesn't experience any failure. Okay, we all have, but those failures allow us to ideate and finally come up with something that works, and then we move. But ultimately, you will need to test across different places, because we do want God's work to expand to the nations, right? So we want to test to the nations. Now, of course, these are my slides on the commercial front. What I then tell customers is that if you want, I can help you test this across countries, okay? I can also test in Northern India if you need to help me. I can do that now, all right? So, and now one part I want to ask you all also, you need a pipeline of new ideas. Maybe your organization is stuck. You don't know what else, right? And that's where people like me will come in to help, and I'll talk more about that in a short while, right? But If you don't have a pipeline of ideas, then all you're doing is theater, acting. This is actually more of a criticism of the, or maybe sometimes of the institutional church and the corporates, right? Or the MNCs. They have a lot of things going on. Looks like a lot of activities. We have hackathons, we have this thing, we have all that. But actually it's just acting, because it's not really real testing. You're not really executing. It just looks fun, but it's good, but it doesn't end. It's not an end to itself. It should be the beginning of something. So if your organization is serious about this, you have to consider a pipeline, not activities. A pipeline of testing ideas and getting them to grow. So ending this whole session up, are you ready to do it yourself? This is a question I ask corporates, big businesses, right? To say, hey, if you want to do your own stuff, many times it's difficult because you need a lot of things in place: innovation practices, organizational design, leadership support, to get it all in place before you can get out there. If you can't, then this is where you have some options, all right? You can outsource, of course. A lot of people outsource it, but the problem with outsourcing is then you outsource development thinking to a development house. You never actually gain in-house experience with it. Then some people say, no, then I want to build my own internal ability. Then what happens is hire talent. But then I have to ask, even if you hire talent, are you sure those entrepreneurial-like people can work in a usual environment? See, here's the usual environment. There's a CEO, COO, and everybody out there, which is all about execution, operations. What in the startup world we're asking corporates to consider is that there will be a CEO. There should also be a chief entrepreneur who's in charge of looking for new money, right? In the missional organization, who is helping you to look for new impact, not new money. New money is for companies. For you all will be, what's a new impact that you can make? So you need somebody to help you consider all of that, right? But time, as you all know, it's hard to find talent, right? Or people to join. But God has His way. Again, I tell you, we have a very unfair advantage, right? God has His way of bringing the right people at the right time. Okay, so we have also this tool called prayer. Don't forget the power of prayer. Like, seriously, people, you have no clue how many times I prayed and then God comes through, right? And I think we all know that. But in terms of my business, in terms of my business ventures, my startup, investors will come through, companies will come through. It's amazing how much when we give, how much comes back to us. How much when we pray and leave it at the feet of the Lord, so much more comes back. That by being quiet and by being childlike, God then shows up. Wow, what a powerful God. Amen. Hallelujah. Love it. Okay, so another option is to work with a venture builder like me. I'm a venture builder. Okay, I have a team of people who can help you, where we have a corporate partner who knows the opportunity, the startup investment, they have the resources, the network. Then the venture builder, we are made up of entrepreneurs. We have the operations, we have the startup experience, we have the digital mindset. We come alongside with and we come up with a new venture together. You give us a network, you have the resources, you have the experience, we have the ways of starting quickly. Those two things together combined becomes very powerful. Because for a long time, everybody has been trying to do it separately. Which means a corporate has been saying, let's run our own incubator, let's run our own innovation teams. And they found it was so difficult. And the startups have said, let's disrupt the big guys, And they realized it's also so difficult. But you see, the big companies, the big organizations, they have a lot of resources, they have networks, they have people, they have processes, insights, things that the small startup can actually leverage off and immediately start. That means if I have a new product, I can use the existing company's network to distribute the product. I don't need to start it. But you do need somebody who is a venture builder, an entrepreneur type, to think of how to use your existing services, your existing resources. So I really want to encourage you all to think about venture building, okay? So just to close it off, you might be asking, so Bryan, what is it that you do? So commercially, I do what we call innovation as a service. I help companies, I help startups to think of new business models and to set up the experiments. Like I said, I help people test their ideas out. Can you see money? See all my testers, they go out there, they test and they get money. So this one is from Indonesia. I also have those in Bangladesh, right? I was done in Vietnam, Philippines, right? So again, call out to those of you who are running missional organizations out there. And if you want another way to make money for your beneficiaries to make money, I'm happy to consider training them and deploying them to do the work that I'm doing. Okay, so they do get paid well here. Okay, For companies, again, I've got my minimum viable products all ready to go, chatbots, pop-up stuff and all that. So if you need us to help, I'm willing to help. We are able to make your insights into product stories so that it helps you to make it into an actual product very quickly. But one of the things that I do is I like to give people a safe space, a safe place to explore. So SC, Suchan and myself, we've been talking about this for some time. I wanted to help missional organizations since the beginning of last year, but because of the COVID thing, a lot of things got halted. But one thing that I've found with bigger missional organizations is that because their mandate has been for so many years, it started from history, right, of of some missionary or somebody with a calling, and it's been 50, 60 years. It's very hard for them to question the way things are done. So by coming and allowing me to facilitate, I immediately create a safe space for everyone to question, which means because I also question, and I'm not part of the team. So I'm fair game to ask anything here so that we can explore opportunities here, right? And then I help you to test quickly and get some actionable outputs. Finally, so in a nutshell, I help you to learn. I help you to discover new business models. I help you to test those models, and I help you to build your new business venture. But here's my pitch to end off. Just nice, 11:28. Okay. I am doing this with Timothy Wong. He heads up Antioch for Asia, which is to how do you help Singapore really reach our prophetic calling of being Antioch, right? And what that means is that how do we do things differently? And in that concept is a concept of micro churches, where wherever we are, whether it's in our startup, whether in our companies, whether it's in our businesses, whether it's in our village or home place. For example, Timothy also has another a cafe in an art school. The question is, how do we set up a micro church within that location so that we can serve the community around it? And the way to do it, that we are doing it differently, is using these concepts of venture building and everything. We want to come alongside missional people to say, we want to, you have the vision and you have the calling. We want to support you and we want to get you out there, not just in a big way, but really in the smallest way possible to learn and to support you in this journey, right? And so that's a concept of micro churches. Brian Sanders, he wrote this book. Okay, so you can read out about micro churches and see what they have to say. But it basically says that for a long time, we've been trying to fix the church by saying that you are small. We need to fix you so that you become a big church. Versus, no, actually small churches are beautiful. We should have many small churches. So isn't that better than one big church? And we see that more strongly in this COVID time now, more than ever. And again, I'm not criticizing the larger church structure. Everyone has its place. But at this moment here, you find that the micro churches are more adaptive, more flexible, easier to meet up one another. In Singapore, we can only meet up to 5, for example. So more flexibility, decentralized, and we can change things much faster. So if you are interested to join this thing or for us to help you, please contact me, okay? So here it is coming right on time, 11:30 right now. Post-webinar activities. If you want me to help you with your startup or business to get growth, here's my QR code and here's the link, grnd.link360lean. You can fill it up, okay? And get in contact with me. My email address is here, right? You can get help with your startup. You can join in if you say, Brian, I do have digital skills. I am an entrepreneur. I have access to funding. Join in to help us start those micro churches all across Southeast Asia. If you just want to have a chat with me, please fill it in too. If you want to volunteer and say, hey, I do just want to be part of whatever Antioch for Asia is doing and whatever else that you are doing to build up many small churches, micro churches around, come talk to me also. All right, so I'm ready to take questions. Any other questions out there, Suchan? I come to it just nice, 11:30. Essie, are you there? Because I see your screen. If not, anyone else has any questions, I'm happy to take questions now. I know some of you have written to me privately. I see it. Okay, so I will reply you all later.
So you're not going to, sorry, Brian, I'm back. You're not going to take the questions here, is it?
I can take it. No, I can. No, I'm saying anybody got questions? You're free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat group. So we already had one question just now by Samuel. Anyone else here, or for where you are in terms of missional work, you may want to ask around there. So Samuel is asking, will you be showing an end-to-end process on how lean startup work? I tried to show you something today. Two sessions from now, I will show you how it's run through an actual startup. Okay. So there were two sessions from now is about top 10 mistakes that startups make, right? You will be able to go through it. If I find that enough of, if on the other hand, people are saying, hey, Bryan, can you bring that case study up earlier? I can switch it with the next one, which is about selling. I can switch it up too. But I leave it to Suchen to manage that because he has already announced it to a lot of people, right? But on the other hand, if those people in this group here, you're excited about that, please let SC know. I'm willing to do another session for you all. Okay. Any other questions? Please don't be shy. Very happy to hear from you all, whichever country you're from. So IP and confidential info, yeah, NDAs. So the question for Alan is this: how do we address our intellectual property and confidential info for co-created venture with the venture builder? Contract. That's what it is. It's a contractual agreement. The venture builder comes in to do it together. One concept for the venture builder is that many times venture builders also do co-invest into the venture also. So they will, if they test it out and they find it's a big opportunity, they actually will raise money to invest into the startup at the same time. In other words, they become co-owners of the concept. Right? If they don't, and it's just a commercial arrangement of money, then there will definitely be NDAs that will cover it. IP created, of course, belongs to the company, right? So these are proven models. It's not unheard of. Kind of the same that if you have outsourced the development of some website or some design or an application, right, to an outsourced company to code for you, the same way that the code you have asked for the IP to belong to you, the same way that would happen with the venture. Okay, it's just that you imagine that the venture builder is like you're hiring a startup to create your startup. Okay, you're hiring them in-house for a period of time, and then after that, we will find a CEO for you to run the venture after we leave. Anyone has any questions or insights that you want to share, stories you want to share?
Well, Bryan, SC here. I mean,
Yep.
I'm attending also another meeting, right? In that meeting, we were discussing about the disruption caused to a Christian bookshop, right?
Yes.
Obviously, through COVID, no one is going to come to your bookshop to buy. Churches that used to, order, right, Sunday school materials, all those are not meeting. So,
Yeah.
so what you are sharing, I think it's really needed to so-called Christian businesses. I mean, a business is a business. It's the owner is whether he's Christian and missional. But I think it's very important that we help everyone we know. Tell them Bryan, right, is a brother in the Lord. Of course, he would love to help as many Christian businesses survive, right? Not more than survive, right? Thrive and find new businesses. Because I think something like a physical bookshop probably is no longer viable, right? Especially in the new normal. What do you think? I mean, can a physical bookshop, Christian bookshop survive, anywhere in Asia?
Yeah. So there are two ways that a physical bookstore can survive, right? One is that it's super niche, right? That it means a niche in something that no one else has anymore, right? Like Kodak still survives through selling of film, but it's a very small industry, but it still works. There are enough people there, but they still survive. But that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for surviving, we're looking for thriving, right? So which means now that the bookstore will have to look for a new business model. Right? What are the new problems that come up with reading or learning or consuming information? Right? Not the concept of purchasing books. Purchasing books is a task. is something to be done, but it's not the progress that people actually want. If you understand progress, what is it that Christians want when we read a book? We want to know Jesus better. We want to get some understanding of the Bible better. We actually want to progress in our Christian walk. So if the Christian bookstore was to look at it and ask themselves, how do we enable progress, but with the same resources that we have, then they will come up with a different business model to be tested. So, so same way for me, like when I sit down with them, I will sit down and discover their resources and look at the things that they can do. And then we pair it up either with digital technology, or even better, we pair it up with new business models that's been shown to work, and then we clone it and put it on top. So for example, we ask ourselves, what's Grab for books? On demand, we library books. When you need books, we send it to you, and then you can read and we collect it back from you, right? So that's another way, right? So reimagining the bookstore and says, okay, look, how do we enable on-demand library books, Christian library books, right? So we still have a physical space, but we are just moving books around. So now whether it can make money is a separate thing altogether. We need to test that. But that will be an example of applying existing business models to all business models, right? And just to help you all, there is a book called The Invincible Company, written by Strategizer. So I'm going to put it into the chat group. So The Invincible Company. In it, you will find that there are altogether 30 over new business models that you can apply to your existing business model. All right. So if you, I just recently taught people about that, and talked about that, and I'm very happy to show you all that. So if you are keen, again, get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to share that with you all. All right.
Okay, thanks, Bryan. Looks like you did a fantastic job. So we don't have too many challenging or difficult questions. So thank you, Bryan, much, for enabling all of us in this, startup space. We have 2 more webinars that's going to be conducted by Bryan. You want to give a bit of preview of what's going to happen in the next 2, or have you?
So let me just share. So the next one is about, if you tested your idea out already, then the question is, how do you then grow it? I will introduce the concept of growth loops, and how do you then create a virtuous cycle, right? Where what I call is that there are many broken growth loops in companies and in missional organizations, where instead of the infinite number 8, you know the symbol 8, right? It's an infinite loop. People, instead of 8s, they have 3s. That means their loops are broken, and they look like number 3s instead of 8s, which is an infinite thing. So you will find that customers don't come back to you, or that people try it out one time, then they don't come back to your app or your program ever again. So you have broken loops. So I want to share about that. I want to talk about how do you do that in terms of sales, how do you do that in terms of growth. Then the last session, the third session, is about the top 10 mistakes that startups made, and I illustrate lean startup using a fictitious startup, and we have a choose your own adventure kind of thing for that. Okay, so you will get to learn that kind of hands-on, a very interactive way of doing it.
Thanks, Bryan.
Okay, so I do want to do a shout out. Please, if you are interested to help with the venture builder that I'm doing with Antioch for Asia with Timothy Wong, please contact me. SC is of course part of this whole thing too, right? Under 360, we are all together in this whole digital missions, okay? But if you are keen to learn more about that, want to know more about it, want to figure out how to help, please contact me. Very happy, very, very happy to get you all involved, right? People of God, right? If not, can I pray? Can I pray a prayer of blessing over everybody? Yeah. So Jesus, we thank you for everyone here from every country, countries around Singapore, across Asia. We are so blessed that using technology, we can get in touch with different parts of the body of Jesus Christ. I want to speak your blessing over every single person, every single church, every single missional organization. Your work is your word, and your work is upon them. They are blessed, and they have started a good work, and it will do what you want them to do. Today, even as they have learned the concepts of testing, I pray you show them that, God, that even as you inspire them, that they do not need to despise the day of small beginnings. They can try, they can fail, it's okay, but they can try again, and they will learn and they will succeed. And I pray you inspire them with new ideas, new thoughts, new impact that they can make in their businesses, their companies, their organizations, in their living places, Lord, or their school or their workplace. Father, God, we are truly wanting to make disciples of all nations. So help us to do that. We love you so much, and we thank you that in coming together, we are also loving one another and supporting one another in this journey of life that we are sharing with the people around us. So we lift you high up, and we thank you for this weekend. With all blessings and glory to you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
All
Thanks,
right.
Brian, again, and thanks to everybody. Take care, all.
Okay. All right. So has everybody leave? Please do contact me. All right. I still have my QR code and my link there. So I have one person who replied already. So I can more the merrier. Please let's keep in contact. So Suchan, I don't know how you do this, but usually I just wait and see people leave. And then if they have questions, I kind of regard this like after an event, then people go off, then some people stay behind and they will talk to you. So this is a chance. No, if you want to chat, turn on your microphone. You can have a chat. You can ask me some follow-on questions if you want to. I'm happy to take it. Okay. Meanwhile, everybody, thanks for your appreciation. But I'm very grateful to be here. It's a privilege to do it together with 360 here.